You know, Bill Cosby remained emotionless. He had his head forward. He sat just looking straight ahead. And meanwhile, in the back row, it was filled with maybe about 8 of other Cosby accusers, and they had already handed out tissues. Immediately, the tears began to flow. They were crying quietly so they wouldn't get kicked out of court. Interlocked fingers. They were all holding hands. They were nodding their heads fervently again and again. But it was quiet. You could hear a pin drop in the courtroom. Additionally, the judge said that he'll have to pay for the prosecution costs for court. He has to pay a $25,000 fine. Leading up to his sentence, he gave some really strong quotes directly aimed at Bill Cosby, and he said, "The jury's verdict must be heard loud and clear. You are convicted of a very serious crime." Again and again, he said no one is above the law. He talked about despite how much money and fame and celebrity you have, no one is above the law.
And Lindsay, when the judge classified him as a sexually violent predator, he sent a signal there that this was not going to be much of any leniency, because Pennsylvania state law defines a sexually violent predator as a person who has a mental abnormality or disorder that makes the person likely to engage in predatory sexually violent offenses. Because his defense team was arguing he was 81 years old, he was blind, and he was frail, but that apparently didn't work into the judge's decision.
You're exactly right. It didn't work. You know, the defense, the district attorney rather, had said several times before, look, you don't get a get out of jail free card because you're old. You don't get a get out of jail free card because it's taken this long for justice to catch up to you. And look, the state prisons are equipped for people who are blind, for people who are old. And it seemed very clear early on that the judge, he gave a lengthy statement before he actually gave the sentence, that he wasn't going to buy that. He basically said, look, what you are charged of, it requires that I give you this total confinement, and kept mentioning that he would need it to protect the public, and also that he would need this prison time basically in order to realize the gravity of this charge.
And Lindsay, you've interviewed Bill Cosby during these proceedings. Do you think once the judge handed down that sentence, that it hit him, that he realized he was going to prison? This was somebody who at one point was one of the most powerful people in Hollywood. He was labeled America's dad, and now he's going to be behind bars.
You know, it seems that he had been prepared for this outcome. And to your point, you know, just to kind of talk about the gravity of this situation, you know, there was a quote in 1981 from a former PR exec at Coca-Cola, and he said that the most believable personalities of our day are God, Walter Cronkite, and Bill Cosby. And now you have one, Bill Cosby, formerly one of the most credible voices in our society, now being sentenced to no less than 3 years, but as many as 10 years behind bars, Tom.
An incredible fall from grace. 60 women have come forward and accused him of sexually assaulting them. I want to put up the victim impact statement of the woman at the center of today's sentencing, Andrea Constant. She wrote, "Bill Cosby took my beautiful, healthy young spirit and crushed it. He robbed me of my health and vitality, my open nature, and my trust in myself and others." And we should point out that Bill Cosby becomes the first convicted man in the era of Me Too. I want to bring in Sunny Hostin now, our senior legal correspondent, and somebody who, as a prosecutor, you prosecuted criminals like Bill Cosby. Your thoughts on the sentencing?
You know, it certainly is very clear to me that this judge looked at Bill Cosby as he would look at any other defendant. He was not above the law. This sentence is completely within the range of what you would suspect someone would get, someone that has been convicted, someone that has been classified as a sexually violent predator. The prosecution asked for 10 years in prison. A range of 3, no less than 3 to 10 is completely within the guidelines. And I think it was very clear once he was classified as a sexually violent predator, that means someone that planned this sort of predation. How do you protect the community from someone that can't control themselves, someone that has this sort of malady, mental disorder?
And that was the turning point today, because the argument was he may be 81 years old, he may be blind, he may be frail, but he may know other women out there, and if he's under house arrest, he could still attack them.
That is true. One of the psychologists testified that he had a personality disorder and he has an interest in sex with non-consenting women and was likely to re-offend. And so when you look at that and you look at what you have to do in determining this sort of sentence, which is you look at the previous criminal record, Bill Cosby didn't have one, but the seriousness of the offense, this is clearly very serious. Any aggravating factors, any mitigating factors, he falls squarely within this sentence.
Sonny, thank you. I want to go back to Lindsay Davis for one more question. Bill Cosby, though, is not done fighting, Lindsay. It's our understanding he does plan to appeal, and that appeal process starts right now.
Yes, exactly. According to Pennsylvania law, you can't start that appeal process until after the sentencing. And so there's already a lawyer in court for him to begin that process immediately. I want to also point out that Bill Cosby had the opportunity, and the judge reminded him, they asked him directly, are you sure you don't want to say anything? He had the opportunity to have the final word prior to the judge's sentencing. He chose to stay quiet. But this is a clear victory for the district attorney's office. They asked for the 5 to 10 years. And they're getting at least 3 to 10.
Lindsay Davis for us, Sonny Hostin, thank you so much for your reporting on this. Again, if you're just joining us, Bill Cosby, once one of the most powerful entertainers in this country, has just been sentenced to 3 to 10 years behind bars. He will be in a prison cell, most likely tonight.